You're listening to the Uprev Ninja Podcast, and this is episode number 48, and I'm your host, Tom Hudson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Uprev Ninja Podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to uprev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Today on the Uprev Ninja Podcast, I interview Kara Skinner. Kara is a blogger, freelance writer, and a college student. She writes on Hub Pages, Medium, and Wikinut about a variety of things she's passionate about. On her blog, Lover's Quarrel, she writes about romance novels to connect readers with good independent romance authors. She donates half of her affiliate earnings to charity to make the world a better place. Currently, Kara is attending college in Florida. Welcome, Kara Skinner, to the Uprev Ninja Podcast. Hey, today on the Uprev Ninja Podcast, I've got Kara Skinner with me. How are you doing today, Kara?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I think I just pronounced your name two different ways. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Oh, so anyway, so you said you're down in Florida, right?
Yes, I'm living in Lakeland right now and attending college, actually, while working.
So what are you studying?
I'm studying marketing.
Oh man, all right. Because if you ever need like a little, want some side gig, let me know, because that's the area that I am not good at. So I don't like writing copy. I just don't get that stuff. But so anyway, I've already read your bio out to my audience, but I would love for you to share with us who you are and how you got to this point in your life.
Well, I grew up actually in Maine, even though I'm living in Florida right now. And that actually did a lot for me about where I came from, because in Maine, it's really rural. And what basically started me out was because I could not find a summer job in high school. Like, I applied to basically all the places, but there were no one was really hiring teenagers in my area. And I got one interview. And they said, the people interviewing me, they were very concerned because they didn't think I had reliable transportation. And even though I assured them I did, I came outside to the parking lot to find my mom's car had broken down after I told them. Yeah. Oh. So obviously I did not get the job. So that became a huge problem for me, though, because I wanted money for college and everything. And so I needed some sort of job. So what happened was, a little bit around that time, I read an article about websites that freelance writers used and stuff, but they didn't pay that well. They were called writing sweatshops. And even though it was a negative article, I thought this is perfect, because if they're not paying that well, then they cannot expect that much great experience. And I already knew I liked writing. So I started going, and I applied to a few jobs on these websites that they mentioned. And I ended up getting a ghostwriting job, and I started ghostwriting novels for my summer job.
That's awesome. That sounds really cool.
It was actually a lot of fun. It was very tough, especially at first, but it was good. So
I'm just curious, where at in Maine?
I lived in a small town called Orland, which is next to Bucksport.
Okay.
You've probably never heard of either.
Well, I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and so I'm a half mile from Maine, and we go up to Oxford County quite often. So
cool.
Norway, China, all the different countries that have towns there. So yeah. So it's a small world, but
yeah.
So, in your bio, you talked about how, some of the struggles that you've had in your life and, since high school. Do you want to share some of that with us?
So I have huge problems with depression and anxiety a lot of the time, and that has definitely affected my work. Whenever I get super depressed, I end up not really working that well at all.
Right.
I end up just watching TV forever, or reading clickbait articles online. And so as fun as it is in the moment, I guess, a little bit. It totally messes me up. And then like if I get too anxious about stuff, it will also take me forever to do work because like, for instance, if I'm writing an article for a guest posting thing, it'll probably take me 2 weeks to write the article when it should have taken me 2 hours because I'm so anxious about it and wondering if they're going to reject. Okay. So all that stuff has like really affected my work, and I've had to try and deal with that. There's also been like other obstacles as well. Like when I first started writing online and making money online, we did not have internet access at home, and that was definitely a problem. I had to go to McDonald's.
I can't imagine, but yeah.
It was interesting. It was definitely probably a really good learning experience to learn how to work when there were screaming kids running around and stuff. Helps with concentration.
Well,
but, sorry.
No, go on, please.
Oh, but yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, I ended up working like many days there because part of it was the ghostwriting novels is such like, it's very time intensive. So if I do like become depressed or anxious, then I will end up working like 10-hour days to make up lost time because of those problems.
So what have you changed in your life to try to minimize that and, you know, mitigate some of those the obstacles that you've had around depression and anxiety? Part
of it is I kind of had to get out of my mom's house a little bit because like I love my mom a lot and she's been very supportive and generous, but the house as it is right now is not the best environment. She often very stressed and she's dealing with her own issues. So like that kind of feeds off of my stress and then like it's just bad. Yeah. So I had to get out of there. Part of it was when I was especially around graduating high school, it was just like a lot of fear about change and everything. And that just like helps just moving on from high school and like finding out what I was going to do and everything. And then on top of that, I started meditating, journaling, and yoga to help as well with depression and stuff and anxiety.
Well, that's great. I mean, do you lean on one of those more than the other, or, you know, the meditation, yoga, and journaling, or are they pretty equal in your life now?
I do a lot of all three of them, but the one that I probably do the most is journaling. I try and write 3 pages a day, like every morning, to help like clear my mind, organize my thoughts, and like work through some of the problems I'm feeling.
Yeah, there's I believe it's a book called Miracle Morning, I believe, and that's one of the items they say 3 pages every morning upon waking up. And yeah, I am not a writer. However, I do find journaling's probably the best release for me. It just helps me gather my thoughts and kind of process them outside of myself, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, I'm classifying you as a writer, and maybe it's not 100% accurate, but you know, I just didn't know if, you know, one of these other avenues worked better for you. So how long have you been out of your home now?
Well, about 2 years, I believe.
Okay.
I went to college in Boston first, and then I moved down to Florida to go to college in Florida.
Okay. So I'm sure just, you know, the culture in Boston and Florida, especially Florida from New England, is a little different.
It's so different.
Yes. Yeah. It's, yeah. And I'm from the South, so I believe me, I know. I've been up here in New England 20 years, though, and I love it up here. But, and I'm sure that added its own level of anxiety and, you know, just the cultural differences and everything that you had to deal with. But, so if you look at yourself now versus 2 years ago, do you see a pretty major shift in who you are and how you handle, you know, these obstacles that you have?
Definitely. I think now I'm a lot less bitter and angry. Like the depression and anxiety often like came out in me as kind of being like a little angry, and now I'm a lot less that, and like I'm a lot less likely to argue with others, and like I'm able to work better, and like things like emails and making phone calls used to like fill me with so much anxiety and drive me crazy, and now I don't have that problem as much. So I've definitely seen a difference.
That's great. Well, you know, so how about, you know, you've already kind of touched on this, but how has this impacted other facets of your life? I mean, you know, relationship, you know, personal and romantic, and, you know, finances, and just your emotional well-being, you know, everything. You know, it sounds like you've kind of alluded to it, that all of those facets have kind of improved. Yeah?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Before, like, especially around graduating high school and stuff, because I did not take that well. I was like having several panic attacks and everything, dealing with finals. And also around that time, my sister was getting married. It was actually, she was getting married, and the next day I was graduating.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I was a bridesmaid for her, and the dress did not fit me well.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was so low cut. I was so uncomfortable. So because of like that and graduating, I was having so many panic attacks. Yeah, it was really bad. And I kind of hid it from my family because I didn't want them to worry. But my boyfriend got the brunt of it because I turned to him whenever I was having one, and he helped me through it. And luckily, he was very understanding of it. But he kind of had to deal with me like texting him in the middle of a panic attack at least like once a week for a while. So things definitely improved after I stopped doing that. It helped a lot after I stopped because I wasn't hiding things and everything.
Yeah, it's when you become authentic and vulnerable, right? Like you find out a couple of things. One, it's a lot easier because you don't have to shoulder the stuff, all this on your own. And secondly, I mean, this can cause its own side effects of depression and loneliness and stuff, but you also find out who the people in your life that really care for you and love you, because if he didn't respond to those texts or just told you to go fly a kite, then that would have put you even in a worse situation, right? So it strengthens those bonds, and it's really good. And I recently saw a quote, and it was specifically about relationships, and it was like, it's not a good relationship isn't defined by the length, it's defined by the depth, and being authentic. I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. So going through this, you like to read. I mean, maybe it's a lot of clickbait, but has there been any books that you've kind of read through this process over the last couple of years, or even back in high school, that have kind of helped you what led you to looking into journaling, meditating, and yoga?
Well, I got the idea of journaling from reading The Artist's Way, which I started at the beginning of high school, but I never actually finished because I lost the book, unfortunately. But I thought that was a good idea, and I started using it, and it helped me a lot. In my first year of college, I listened to The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Yep.
Yeah. That definitely helped me a lot. It helped me analyze like what I was doing that was like actually making an effect, and like work I was doing that was actually just busy work, and like how to cut out the busy work. So that helped. And also it helps like because he kind of says in the books that it's okay if you don't want to have an 8-hour job that you don't really like and everything. And like it's better to find a job that you like. And I was kind of really relieved about that because the college I was going to was like pretty big on like having you go and join corporate America and everything. And I'm like, I don't want that. So like that was really good. Lately, the book I've been listening to is called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
I just finished that book 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and I'm reading her second book right now about the money one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I need to read that one, I'm sure. How did you like the first one?
I liked it a lot, and what I've been reading these type of materials for a long time, so I feel that they have similar messaging. However, my undergrad is in organizational development, and one of the things you learn, and I don't know, this is going to sound silly because we all know this, everyone sees the world through a different set of lenses and frame. And so, I can get the exact same topic written by 10 different people, and one of those people I'll connect with just because of the words they use and the way they position it. And, like I'm a huge Tim Ferriss fan as well. I just get his stuff, and I have friends of mine that they just do not understand his stuff, but they'll love like Tony Robbins, for example. And I'm like, oh man, his stuff's just too dry. But they talk about the same things in a lot of different contexts. So, but yeah, I totally loved her book. That's awesome. Well, what about, obviously you kind of got pushed out of your comfort zone, coming from, rural Maine into Boston, and especially now in Florida, that really had to push you out of your comfort zone, I assume. Have you, how has that impacted your life?
Well, I'm definitely more culturally aware now. I think when I first went to Boston, I probably accidentally offended so many people just because I was from rural Maine, and I have never really met that many people who come from a different background than me.
Right.
And like for a while, I was actually warning my friends, like, I'm like, if I offend you, just let me know so I don't do it again, but I don't mean anything.
Right.
So I'm definitely like more culturally aware, and I don't stare at anybody who's not like Caucasian wearing flannel now. Like
And the LL Bean boots. I get it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I know how that is.
Yeah.
So what do you think you've done, what kind of personal habit other than what you've already talked about that you really feel, contributes to your personal growth?
I just kind of keep writing, I guess. And like, that's really what it is, because I'm trying to learn how to write faster and write better. I also I want to make it a lifetime habit to just keep learning. Like even outside of my college classes right now, I've been getting books from the library and everything to like learn about reading better, like reading, like critical reading, and then like writing better and editing and that stuff. And I think it's like a huge help, and it's really, really important to make reading a lifelong goal and not something that's just temporary, and not something just to get like to the next step in your career. It should be fun and
Right.
so cool, like to go into like the college libraries and look around, because there's so many good books there that I want to read and like learn from and everything.
Yeah, it's funny. Elon Musk, I believe, reads on average 2 books a day.
Oh, wow.
And, it takes me that long. It takes me a month to read a book sometimes. And I love reading. I really do. It's just, it's not a priority of mine. I have other items that I, put a higher priority. But you are a badass. The week I read that, I was actually in northern Maine on vacation. I had no internet.
Right.
No cable. My cell phone didn't work. I didn't have my laptop, nothing. So I read 3 books in 2 days. And
Wow.
and that's probably as many books I've read for the entire year up to that point. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, and I love reading. I can just devour books, but yeah. So anyway, I think that's a great habit. Do you are you a member of a book club or anything like that where you share what you've learned, or is it all just introspective and you keep it to yourself?
It's basically just introspective. Like now and then, if I see somebody, like if I'm talking with somebody and they're interested in something I've learned, then I'll bring it up, or like I'll recommend a book to somebody. But I'm not in a book club or anything.
Okay.
I tried that actually at a manual, but it was pretty difficult to keep the commitment and everything.
Yeah, it's not my style either. So
Yeah.
I've written book reviews. I've got another website I actually haven't touched in probably a year or two, but I did book reviews for about 2 years, and that was fun. But at the same time, I'm like, it's just it was a lot of work. So and I'm not a writer, but the reason I did that was actually to improve my writing. So
That's a good way to do it, definitely.
well, so this. This podcast is all about trying to, up-rev your life, always trying to, get to the next level and try to improve. What facet of your life right now are you focused on trying to improve? And I assume you just started back in school, so I'm sure things are kind of haywire right now. But what facet of your life are you focused on right now?
Definitely social right now. Like I never really had much of a social life. Well, I had a social life in Boston. I had a few friends there. But this is my second semester at Polk State College. And in my first semester, I had only one friend that I saw basically every other week for like an hour or two.
Okay.
So I am definitely trying to get a social life now. And so basically I'm trying to like join clubs and like talk to people in class and like become more outgoing, because I'm usually not outgoing.
Right.
So I'm trying to do that. It's been a little exhausting, but I know it's going to be good.
I was just about to say, if you're a classical introvert, doing those extroverted things can be exhausting. So it's
Exhausting.
Yeah, like my wife, she's an introvert and I'm an extrovert. And like, yeah, when I want downtime, I want to be surrounded by people. And when she wants downtime, she wants to be, hiding away in a cave. So it's just like, but, we've learned how to, it's one of those things. And when you learn that about yourself and about those close to you, there's strengths that you can build off of that, which is pretty awesome. So
That's true.
So, I want to kind of go back and, you talked about having, the depression and anxiety, and especially when you were in high school, and how you've managed that, and which I think is really great. So let's say there's someone out in the audience today and they're listening to this and they're struggling where you were, 2, 3, 4 years ago, and they just don't know where to start. What kind of parting guidance would you give that individual?
That's hard because everyone is struggling with so many different things. Yeah, probably I would tell them to find a journal. It doesn't even have to be a journal. It could just be like a piece of paper or whatever, and like just start writing whatever comes into their mind and everything, because that will help them. They will at least be able to get it all down and see what's really bothering them, and they'll probably be able to maybe work out a solution or work out a coping mechanism or organize it or something. So that would just be what it is. And like, they don't even have to stop at 3 pages. They could like fill a whole notebook if they want to. They just should probably get it all out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna in the show notes, I'm gonna list all the different ways to contact you. But what's the best way for audience members to reach out and get in contact with you?
Well, I check my Facebook page and Twitter basically every day. So if they want to send me a tweet or leave a message or write on the Facebook page, then that would work really well. They should not use direct message on Twitter, though, because I never check those.
Okay. All right.
And otherwise, they can use the contact form on loversquarrelreviews.com. And I will try and get back to them. That goes into my regular inbox, and sometimes messages slip through the crack, but I will try and get back to them.
Okay. And is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to share with the audience, like a new project or anything like that?
I am actually working on fulfilling my goal on Lovers Quarrel to raise $100 for charity in 2017. Right now, I've raised about $57, and I'm really hoping to make it $100 by the end of 2017.
Okay. And what is there a specific charity you're aiming to help with this, or?
There's actually 3 main charities that I've been trying to help. I've been helping the Borgen Project, which fights extreme poverty by like advocating for laws to be passed for U.S. aid to be distributed more efficiently and stuff.
Okay.
And then I am also supporting the Malala Fund to help girls around the world get education, and supporting the Arbor Day Foundation, so that way I can help like get more trees planted and help struggling forests and help with education about like the importance of forests and everything.
Okay. I'll make sure I include all of that in the show notes as well. And just kind of the final question here, is there anything that we haven't touched on or talked about that you would like to bring up?
I just want to say, like, there is like one thing, if people are like kind of bored and they don't really know what to do with their lives or whatever, and they want to like rev it up, one thing I found is that if you were doing something, whatever it is, and you find your eyes glazing over, you should immediately stop doing it, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who has clicked on a clickbait article, realized I already read it, and that it wasn't that great to begin with, and then I keep reading it.
Right.
So I'm sure I'm not the only one. So like, if you ever catch yourself doing something like that, or like glazing over when you're watching TV or playing a game on your phone, like, then just like go and do something else, like whatever it is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, it's so easy, especially now with we have so much more information, YouTube, Wikipedia. Yeah. I mean, how often do we go in that rabbit hole? Like, I'm going to look this one thing up 2 hours later, like,
Definitely. And it's great if you're having fun and learning stuff, but like, if your eyes are just glazing over, then You're not actually having fun, and you just wasted a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. You talked about a lot of awesome, tips I think people can, learn from. And, I grew up in a rural area as well, so I know what you're talking about. So, it can be challenging, but, I think traveling, moving, stuff like that definitely opens you up to being more receptive to the world. And it's definitely a key way to learn. So that's a great observation.
I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's great. This was a lot of fun.
All right, that was a fun episode with Kara, and it's just funny talking about growing up in a rural area. Like, she grew up in Maine, couldn't find a job, had no internet, ended up having to go to a McDonald's to get an internet connection to do the ghostwriting that she got into. She talked about her growth moving to Boston, going to college there her first year, and then to Florida her second year, and just, how culturally unaware she was and how that, changed her. But, really going back into when she was in high school, the struggles, she talked about depression and anxiety, how that affected her work. And then when she was a senior, how even living at home, and her mother's stress kind of, tainted Kara. So it was just interesting, but she talked about moving into journaling, doing yoga and meditation, and where she writes, 3 pages a day in the morning. And, that really, really helped her. And, this was, she's been away now for 2 years. So, almost 3 years maybe at this point. And, she's really transformed. And it's really cool to hear, that transformation. And, it's pretty simple. Pen to paper, write down what's going through your mind and just let it flow. So those were my key takeaways. What were some of yours?
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.
If you haven't, please head on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review for the show. By doing so, this helps the show get noticed by more listeners and helps spread the word of how to discover the best version of yourself. Also, if you have any feedback about the show or a guest that you would like, please go to my website, https://uprev.ninja and contact me. This week's review comes from Paul D. Johnson. Reveals wisdom and actionable inspiration. As host of the God Zone Show podcast, I appreciate the deep dive conversation journeys that Tom takes his guests on to reveal valuable wisdom and actionable inspiration.